Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I just wanted to start off with an introduction on myself and experience with in the fountain pen community and why I have chosen to incorporate them into my daily routine. I wanted to kind of set a baseline or kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from before I actually start doing reviews of the pens that I own. So I started collecting back in 2007. My first pen was the Parker Insignia, and then from there I jumped to the Parker 51. So then I moved to Houston, and I was going to college there, and I found a little shop because I needed to have my Insignia repaired. I decided to tackle the task of grinding my own nib, which I literally did with a household sharpening stone. And well, needless to say, that did not work out well. And since then I have come, I'd say, a long way from those days. And I owe a lot of the knowledge that I have and the experiences to the Dromgoole family, Larry and Willie, and the family. Here it is, 2016, and I believe I'm up to maybe 60 something pens. Now that's anywhere from, you know, your cheapest fountain pen out there, like, well, I've never had the Platinum Preppy, but you know, I've had the Noodler's Flex pen when that first came out. I've had the Pilot Plumix, the Pilot 78G, on up to, you know, some of the more luxurious pens from Visconti, from Mont Blanc, and from DuPont. So it's taken some time, and it's taken research and learning and being able to write with the pens and talking to other people about, you know, why they like this brand or this style versus another, and just getting to know the history and having much more of an appreciation for the pen companies or a specific brand or a style of pen. So I started out with an italic nib, and it's kind of been what most of my pens end up being. So whether I buy it with a medium nib, or I buy it with a broad nib or a fine nib, it's going to end up as an italic. Now, either I'll grind it myself, customize it to my liking, or I actually send it to Steve Postilnick, who does all the nib grinding and repairs over at Dromgoole's. And speaking of Steve, I have learned so much from that man, and I can't thank him enough for teaching me the things that I know. It's still not up to par with his knowledge or any of the other great guys out there who you know have their knowledge base. Mauricio, for example, and vintage pens, or John Matashaw, or any of the other guys out there who, you know, just know pens. And I don't mean to exclude anyone. Those are some of the people that I have personally met and spoken with, and, you know, actually had conversations about it. So I apologize. Didn't mean to leave anyone out on that or say these guys are better than others. That's not the case at all. I started out with buying, you know, just little cheap pens here and there, and they worked. I was happy with them. And slowly, you know, it was such a huge jump to go from, you know, using a steel nib, and then all of a sudden taking that leap into buying my first gold nib pen. And I thought it was this huge thing, and that, you know, this was going to be the end all be all, and all of a sudden my writing was just going to go through the roof, and I wasn't ever going to need anything again. And then I have a collection. So that really didn't hold up. I have experienced that sometimes it takes working on the nib, adjusting the nib, to really get it to do what you want it to do. So yeah, people are going to argue that, well, the ballpoint is just going to write until it doesn't, and then I'll just throw it away and buy another one. Okay, that's good. That's you. If that's your thing, that's fine. If you're happy with that, then why change it? You know, or a roller ball, you know, or a gel pen. You know, everyone has their preference, and I think one of the biggest reasons that I choose to write with fountain pens on a regular basis is because I take a lot of notes. I hate when I grab a roller ball or I grab a ballpoint, and it's more with a ballpoint than a roller ball or a pencil. And it's an inherent want to just grab the pen and choke it, you know, for dear life as you're writing, and your hand will cramp if you keep that up. Whereas a fountain pen, you know, it's the weight of the pen. When the nib touches the paper, it starts flowing, and it's gonna write. It's essentially effortless. You could do it on just the weight of the pen, and for me, that helps a lot. Now, yes, there's a nostalgia about writing with one, and it's a great conversation starter. It's a lot of people know me. Oh, you're the guy that writes with fountain pens or whatever. I've met people who, oh, I've heard about you through someone else, and you use fountain pens, right? My reputation has kind of preceded me in that sense, and it's nice. I like it. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, I've given them as gifts to people who I've felt had an appreciation for it or wanted to give it a shot, but really didn't want to commit to it. And that was my way of saying, here, try it out. Yeah. Okay, what should you look for in purchasing a fountain pen? Well, for me, I looked for, does it flow? And this is actually after experience, because in the beginning I had no idea, no clue what I wanted. I had no clue what I was looking for. I didn't know the difference from, you know, one thing to the next, a fine nib to a broad nib, an italic, cursive italic to a formal italic to a stub, from an oblique, and all the other variations out there, right? What I would say to anyone looking for this is that if you just grab a ballpoint and go, and you want to try a fountain pen, it's on you on how much you spend. Don't be discouraged that, oh, you're gonna buy a steel nib pen and it's not as good as a gold nibbed pen or a palladium pen for the Visconti folks out there, myself included. You know, you gotta start somewhere. You know, if you're lifting weights, well, you're not jumping into curling the hundreds or even benching the hundreds. You have to start out small in anything you do, and that's just how it works. Now, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to go out and just buy the most expensive pen because it's the most expensive pen and it looks amazing and it works out for you, then that's cool. But if it's something you just want to try, then just pick something. Start somewhere and determine, do you want a smaller line or do you want a broader line? Do you want a heavier pen? Do you want a more slender pen, a fatter pen, a longer pen, a shorter pen, metal, acrylic, resin, ebonite, translucent? You know, the possibilities are essentially endless. And you may not have to jump into having a gold nib or a palladium nib. You might be content with a steel nib, and that's perfectly okay. No one is going to say, you're not really a fountain pen person because you only have steel nibs. A lot of pens from way back in the day were all made with steel nibs. Granted, the more expensive ones were gold nibs, and that was, you know, a whole nother thing because of the flexibility for some folks, and penmanship was really revered at that point. We didn't have, you know, computers to just type on, you know. People wrote letters, and it was important, and the flourishes and having legible handwriting and all of that was important, and it was frowned upon if you didn't have good penmanship. So that's kind of where I think it stemmed from, and gold was the metal that was flexible enough to create that line variation, but also return to its original position rapidly. If you look at reviews, you'll see the responsiveness of a flex pen. Well, that's its ability to spring right back to its original shape after you've flexed it. And if that's what you like, then those are things to look into and learn, and jump on the forums or call folks and ask them, and they'll be more than glad to answer those for you. So that was the main reason that I purchased fountain pens, and my collection has grown not just to have as many as possible, but because I've repaired a few of them that I found at antique stores or online or whatever, and I wanted to learn to repair, so I got them up and running, and I didn't feel like selling them. I wanted to use them, so I've kept them. I love using a vintage flex pen as much as I love using a more modern pen, and it depends on the day. It depends on what I feel like writing. What have I not used yet? But there's no quantity that's going to determine one way or the other that you're a person who likes fountain pens, or anything that's really going to label you as that. If that's what you use, that's what you use. And so what I would offer to you is find a pen that flows well. Find a pen that is not a hard starter and is consistent in its writing, that feels right in your hand, and that fits your budget. And then you can jump into the aesthetics. If you like the way it looks, okay. If you want a steel nib, okay. If you have the money to spend on the gold nibs, okay. But start somewhere. Jump into it. Don't be afraid. I don't think I know anyone who has jumped into experiencing using a fountain pen and just stopped at one. That might be a bad thing, but the point I'm making is that you'll try something else, and you'll have an appreciation for your first one, more than likely, provided it's worked for you. And then, the next one will kind of be a way to distance yourself from the first type that you bought, to venture out there and try something different. Again, you don't have to spend a lot, or you can spend a lot. That's up to you and your budget. But it's a hassle if you make it a hassle. It's inconvenient if you let it become inconvenient, or it can be extremely convenient. I don't have a problem traveling with, a bottle of ink or refilling on a regular basis. I keep the bottle at work, I keep ink at home, and whenever I just think about it, I'll refill the pens. And it's not that big of a deal. It's not as messy as some people think. If your pen's leaking, then there's a problem with it, and it needs to get repaired, or it at least needs to get looked at. It may be something simple. Get out there, try it, and I'll be, now that I have kind of set the stage, I'm going to start doing reviews of my pens, show you the writing styles and what I think about them, which I love them all, so you're not going to get a bad review from me on my pens. But you'll get an appreciation, I hope, for what everything does and how they write, and the variation in line width and flexibility and just aesthetics. So look out for that, and I would encourage you to subscribe if you're interested, and I hope this video has helped a little bit in getting you to want to take that next step into buying your first pen, second pen, 50th pen, 1000th pen, whatever the case may be. Or just to let you know that there's more of us out there who use fountain pens on a daily basis.